Everything you need to know about the Constitution on one sheet of paper. All right, folks, let's get started. Title your paper, The Constitution, just like you see in front of you. And underneath the title of the Constitution, write Part 1, the Preamble. There are 3 parts to the Constitution, and we will be looking at Part 1. The preamble reads, "We the people." And that was a big deal because before it was what the king wanted, not what the people wanted. So this was the very first document that actually said, "We the people." This is what we want. So we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, which means our children, do ordain, we do declare, and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. So this preamble, this introduction, tells us exactly what our framers wanted from the Constitution. They didn't get it from the Articles of Confederation, and they were hoping to fix their mistake on this document. As I said earlier, there are 3 parts to the Constitution. We are moving on to Part 2, the Articles. Be sure to write Part 2, the Articles, on your paper. Article 1 talks exclusively about the legislative branch, and the legislative branch makes the laws. It is our Congress. On your paper, make sure you write Article 1, the legislative branch. Our Congress is bicameral, and bicameral means there are 2 houses. We have an upper house, which is the Senate, and the lower house, which is the House of Representatives. Both together, the Senate and the House of Representatives make Congress. The House of Representatives and the Senate are not the same. The House of Representatives has 435 representatives, and it's based on states' population. They go for 2-year terms, and the entire House is elected every 2 years. A person must be at least 25 years old to be a House of Representative, and they must be a U.S. citizen for at least 7 years. Senate, there are only 100 senators, 2 from each state. They run 6-year terms. 1/3 of the Senate is elected every 2 years, at least 30 years old. They must be at least 30 years old, and a U.S. citizen for at least 9 years. They must be the resident of the state where they are elected. Article 2, the executive branch. Its job is to enforce the laws. On your paper, write Article 2, the executive branch. The executive branch of the United States is headed by the President, and notice it also includes the Vice President, the President's Cabinet, and all the executive agencies. For example, the Department of Education. Article 3 is the judicial branch. The judicial branch interprets the laws. On your paper, write Article 3, the judicial branch. Notice the judicial branch is made up of many different courts. You have the Supreme Court, you have federal courts, you have U.S. district courts, you have state trial courts. There's lots of different courts, and you can take a few minutes to look at the structure when you feel like it. The job of the judicial branch is to interpret the law. The Supreme Court gets to decide if a law is right or wrong, and if it's wrong, they can destroy the law. But the entire judicial branch, state courts, federal courts, they are constantly checking to make sure that the law is fair and that offenders are punished. On your paper, write Article 4. Now there's 2 parts to Article 4. 1, the government creates rules for states to get along with other states. And 2, the process of admitting states into the Union. And of course, you're writing the government creates rules for states to get along with other states and admitting states into Union on your paper. Article 4, relations among the states. In order for the Constitution to work, the states must get along and work together. Remember, we are the United States of America. And one way we're able to do that is full faith and credit clause. And what that means is if one state makes a law, all the other states will respect that law. The two states may not have the same law, but they do understand that each state has the ability to make certain laws and they will follow them. And one of the ways, an example of that is bankruptcy. If a person declares bankruptcy in Utah, and that person maybe moves to California, California can send them back to Utah to deal with their bankruptcy. They can't just escape their problems because they move from one state to another. Another is the Privileges and Immunities Clause, and this prevents a state from treating citizens of other states differently. No matter what state you're from, you still have your basic civil rights. And then clearly, everybody has the right to travel from state to state. On your paper, write Article 5, How to Change the Constitution. The Constitution is known as a living document because it can change through the amendment process. Article 5 states how the amendment process works. Be sure to copy what you see there on your paper. Article 5, amending the Constitution. Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, can propose an amendment, or 2/3 of the Senate legislatures can call a convention. But in either case, they need 3/4 of the state legislatures to pass it to become a part of the Constitution. On your paper, write Article 6. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. The Constitution is the highest law of the land, and the Constitution must always be followed first. If a situation comes up and it is not mentioned in the Constitution, then the states have the decision on whether what happened is legal or illegal. Make sure you write Supreme Law of the Land. The Constitution is the highest law on your paper. As you see, there is a hierarchy. The United States Constitution is on top because that is the law that must be followed. But if there is something that is not mentioned in the Constitution, then it goes to the acts of Congress, whatever laws Congress makes. If Congress doesn't mention it, then it goes to state constitutions, then it goes to state laws, and then finally city and county laws. On your paper, write Article 7, and Article 7 is simply how the Constitution became a law. And 9 out of the 13 states, original 13 states, voted for the Constitution, and the Constitution then officially became the United States formal plan of government. Remember to write voting the Constitution into law onto your paper. And finally, on your paper, write Part 3, the amendments. In total, there have been 27 changes to the Constitution. On your paper, please write underneath Part 3 amendments, there have been 27 amendments total. The first 10 are known as our Bill of Rights. Take a minute and look at them. After you look at them, please make sure that you write the first 10 are our Bill of Rights. And that concludes everything we needed to know about the Constitution on one sheet of paper. If you need to re-watch this video, please make sure you do so.